opportunity and good health to virtually attend in the international webinar on the role of intellectual property during and post-COVID-19 pandemics. This international webinar is concretization of solid collaboration and synergy between IKANO UNPAD and Faculty of Law Universitas Padjadjaran, together in harmony, keeping the good spirit and optimism alive and positively contribute as a part of the solution for current obstacles and challenges. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 pandemic that started as a health crisis turns into a multidimensional crisis and forces the government to make comprehensive efforts to overcome the pandemic as well as manage the side crisis, including economic crisis. In a health emergency condition and multidimensional crisis, it's highly critical to formulate the effective and proactive measures in utilizing resources with unlimited potential human creativity. The role of IP are getting more crucial and determinant position on the effort of problem solving concerning multidimensional crisis as the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. Intellectual property has been globally acknowledged, not just the form of creativity, but also as an important element of trade and economic through the TRIPS agreement. The utilization of IP will reach its optimum level through synergy and collaboration between stakeholders and stakeholders concerning the utilization and monetization of IP as the result of thinking and creative activities cannot be separated from the existence of a solid support system. IP as creation and an innovation will be able to provide significant impact when the utilization is beneficial both for the creators and society in common. These are the core problems that needs to be solved with comprehensive formula through discussion, academic review, business analysis to sociology observation concerning society culture in perceiving IP and its utilization. From the aforementioned background, Faculty of Law, Universitas Padjadjaran, and IKANO UNPAD perceive it's highly important to create a forum for socialization, discussion, and coordination to educate related stakeholders in the form of an international webinar, the role of intellectual property during and post-COVID-19 pandemic, presented by our reputable and highly competent experts as the source person, accompanied by Dr. Laina Rafianti as moderator. Lastly, we genuinely hope that this international webinar will broaden our insight and encourage us to be more concerned in utilizing the very core of human instinct, the human mind, in overcoming life challenges through creativity and innovation, as well as mitigating the multidimensional crisis through intellectual property development during and post-pandemic to build the resilience and sustainability of a nation. Thank you for your kindness, attention, and participation. Also, thank you for everyone who are kindly and genuinely participate in this webinar. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Ibu Dr. Ranti, for the remarks.
Sure.
Now, we are going to have our first keynote speech from Rector of Universitas Padjadjaran. Kepada Profesor Dr. Hajah Rina Indiastuti, S.E. M.SIE, kami silahkan. The screen is yours.
Thank you, Ibu MC. Dear distinguished keynote and invited speakers, Dr. Arif, Havas, Oegroseno, the Excellencies Ambassador of the Republic Indonesia to the Federal Republic of Germany, and also distinguished speaker, Professor Dr. An.An Chandrawulan, Professor Dr. Ahmad M.Ramli, Mr. Yoshihiro Nagahashi, and then Professor Ian Carboli, and Professor Dr. Edi Damian, and of course, Dr. Ranti Fauza, and all participants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon or good morning for Bapak Arif. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am honored to be invited to deliver a keynote speech in this important agenda. Let's start by understanding this statement. This statement is quote from WHO. The message is that IP or intellectual property is playing an important role in helping us adapt to the crisis caused by COVID-19 pandemic. In the next slide, we know that COVID-19 pandemic is affecting each and every aspect of our daily lives, as mentioned by Ibu Ranti. Apart from the health risks, it has been disrupting our social and economic lifestyle or a part of it. Amid this situation, there's one thing which stays more powerful, and that is intellectual property. In this webinar, we are going to talk about the role of IP in the current and post-pandemic situation. We will touch upon why IP protection and its utilization are very important. How can one benefit from IP assets? Ladies and gentlemen, we know that coronavirus outbreak has led to massive disruption. It's helped many things. Let's see that disruption and innovation can change the intellectual property landscape. IP protection and compliance through the use of technology and managing IP portfolios amid the pandemic, as well as the benefit after this crisis. Next slide, please. The importance of IP in 19 pandemic. Let's agree that IP is so important to get out of the pandemic. Why? Because through IP protection is key to fostering innovation. Without protection of ideas, business and researchers would not get return on investment on their invention. I agree, we all agree for the importance of IP, not only amid this situation, but also on the post of the pandemic. We see how government, together with academics and researchers, take action to promote innovation, remove barriers, and facilitate open sharing of knowledge, intellectual property and data necessarily for COVID-19 detection, prevention, treatment, and response, including through government funding and policy measures, and also international collaboration on regulatory practices to ensure availability, affordability, and assure quality of the concerned product. This slide mentions many things about the important the IP protection and utilization in this condition. For example, in our university, in Universitas Padjadjaran, UNPAD academics and researchers join a consortium formed by government to continue research, innovation, in order to produce COVID detection tools and other needs. Besides participating in this consortium, UNPAD researchers continue research, innovation, in collaboration with industry to produce prototypes and plan to process intellectual property. This is that of why maybe the international webinar today is very important, not only for participants, but particularly for academics and researchers, and of course, for industry and also government. During the pandemic, various innovations were produced not only in the health sector, but in various areas of life, which have been disrupted by the mass use of technology. So how IP trends post-COVID-19 pandemic? I think that because we learn a lot of the pandemic now, and many lessons learned we got from our effort, our activities nowadays. So then what kind of IP trend will happen later? Many innovative work have sprung up responding to people's need, such as online market preference. Of course, about medical or health devices and pharmaceutical products. And the question is that what the challenges for non-COVID-19 essential brands in the future? And how the challenges for identifying the mechanism available to commercialize their IP. Ladies and gentlemen, so next slide, closing slide. Please, we all together to discuss two important things about the monetization of IP. For example, patent commercialization as indicated by licensing income should be noticed by stakeholders, how the public policy can support patent securitization and patent exchange. I mentioned before, for example, the innovative research that conducted by UNPAD researchers nowadays. They produce some COVID detection called by Cepat in collaboration with industry, and the limit time they can produce, but they don't have IP, because in the parallel time produce and also to register the discovery do in the parallel time. And the next question is how stakeholders can emphasize the ways that IP can be used to generate domestic innovation and economic growth. Maybe the last thing is a very, very strategic point for our country in amid pandemic, and of course also for the post-pandemic crisis. That's all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the attention. Please, together we can do anything hand in hand. Academics, researcher, government, and of course stakeholders, and of course IKANO, I think. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you for Rector of Universitas Padjadjaran who has given us the keynote speech. Step on the following agenda, we are going to have our second keynote speech from the Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to the Federal Republic of Germany. Kepada Bapak Arif Havas Oegroseno, kami silahkan. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much. A very good morning to all of you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The rectors of UNPAD and the Dean of Law School and the team of this organizing event, Prof. M.Ramli, a very good friend of mine who is now deputy in the Ministry of Communications. Mas Chandrawulan, he is also a good friend of mine, who is one of the speakers, and also all the panels in this session today. I have been following the development of IPR and vaccines of COVID-19 in Europe. There have been a lot of discussions among international lawyers, and I'm also happen to be the member of the International Law Association in Germany. There are a couple of very interesting development in regards to IPR with regard to COVID-19. And one that is quite important is we are seeing the studies of COVID-19 virus are being freely uploaded. Many online journals are giving out open access to the public, free articles on the COVID-19. And we have seen thousands and thousands of pieces of articles that are normally you have to pay to get access, and now it's basically open to international communities. There's so many journal sites across the world that give that exactly a free access to articles of COVID-19. Even some preliminary studies on COVID-19 are being opened up, and it's very, very interesting. For instance, we have been discussing with BioNTech in Germany, and there are apparently a number of public documentations that are being used by BioNTech and even Pfizer in their submissions to vaccine 19 use for European and US market. There is also very interesting development on the software aspect, on the apps aspect. Ibu Rector, Professor Rina has mentioned about some of the detections applications that it's developed by UNPAD and the industry. And we have seen a number of applications which is now becoming open source. The one in Germany, they have a specific apps for that you can download for tracing and looking at the latest development on the infections. And that app is also free and it's open for public, and you can actually get the property rights without a payment whatsoever. So this is another new development in the IPR in relation to COVID-19, because the pandemic scale is so large and it's so huge, and the public goods, the understanding that you need to work together without infringing property rights is something that we are quite happy to see that. Now, that is on the aspect of the studies, the aspects on the articles, and also on the aspects of the issue in relations to software and applications. Now there is a big debate in WTO and also among international lawyers on the issue of the vaccine itself, on the issue of the medication itself. The big questions that came up, and there are two countries who are pushing it in WTO, which is India and South Africa, which is basically asking for waiver of property rights of the vaccines. So the debate is going on now. I have received positions by NGO, for instance, human rights NGO, which is basically they're saying that the vaccine of COVID-19 will create new monopoly of major powers, will create unequitable distributions of vaccines, especially in the developing and LDCs, and even potentially impeding mass production of existing and future health products. it's a for me this debate, it's personally it's a little bit strange, because this is a debate about accessing something that does not exist. Okay, the question is not access to vaccine of COVID. I think the real issue is the fact that there is no vaccine of COVID now. So how can you debate about waiving the IPR of something that does not exist? Of course, the argument is that you need to preempt in case there is an approved vaccine, but then the legal issue is not just in case there is a legal vaccine, because if you have actually an approved vaccine, then the legal question is whether it's affordable, whether you can have access or not, and how is the distributions, for instance. But that is when you have the approved vaccines. Now, before that, I think all of our efforts, all of our thinking, all of our work has to be channeled to finding an approved vaccine. And I think this is the key. So we should be able to do that together with many different countries. And also, we should be thinking, if there is an approved vaccine, then the question is not waiving IPR, I think. Then the question is in relation to whether a country is prepared to remove the barriers to access. And the barrier to access of vaccine for COVID-19 is not the IPR, but it's the manufacturing capacity, it's the supplies and equipment, it's the logistic issue, and it's about import duties, it's about the drug administration's procedure, it's the lack of internal transportations, the problem of delivery mechanisms, and as we all know and heard, COVID-19 vaccines requires a very cold container, for instance. Some products are designed to keep the COVID vaccines in minus 50, minus 70 degrees Celsius. So it's a very cold container that you have to develop. So, well, I know the lawyers like to, like to think through and see different kind of eventualities. But I think at this point of time, the discussion should not be about waiving the IPR of the vaccine COVID-19, but I think the issue is more on how we prepare ourselves if there is an approved vaccines. And then there is also an argument that it will create unequal distributions to developing country and LDC. I would say this argument is not entirely correct, because surprise, surprise, the continent that is very successful in handling COVID-19 vaccines, COVID-19 pandemic is Africa. Africa is tested. Africa has experience in Ebola, in Marburg. They knew what to do. Personally, I would say the Africans know better to do than the Americans. The last week, you have 1 million infection in the US alone. The total infection in the US is 11 million people. And in Africa, a continent with 52 countries, the death is only 40,000. So the argument that the COVID-19 vaccines monopoly by some power will not create equal distribution to developing countries, it's really not in place, I would say, and it's incorrect. And I have to say it loudly, I'm sorry to say, but sometimes a racist statement, because as if people in developing countries cannot handle a COVID-19 pandemic. Africa is the most successful continent in the world in dealing with COVID-19 pandemic, and they have developing countries, they have LDC, and yet the pandemic has nothing to do with being developed or being developing. So I think these are the key issue that we need to look at it today. And I think for us, for Indonesians, we also work with many different countries in trying to procure vaccine. But we also, as we know, we are working ourselves, the vaccine Merah Putih. And our medical team, our engineers, our experts are working on it. And hopefully we will be able to have our own Indonesian vaccines sometimes next year or early 2020. And that, I think, it shows that Indonesia has the capacity to do that as well. And if we have invented and innovated vaccines, I'm not so sure whether we are willing to have our patent rights being waived by another country. So I think we have to look at this in a much more complete and comprehensive picture. If there are approved vaccines, then if it can be proven that access to such vaccines is impossible or difficult or unreasonably difficult, then we may ask for a waive of the IPR. And even the rules of WTO, for instance, Article 31, it's quite vague, I would say. You know, Article 31 talk about, for instance, reasonable amount of time, reasonable amount of period, and WTO does not say the definition of reasonable. I'll give you an analogy. I want to digress a little bit on the Convention on the Law of the Sea. The Convention on the Law of the Sea allows coastal states to arrest foreign illegal fishing. And foreign illegal fishing may ask for the vessels to be released with bond. And the law says reasonable bond. But law of the sea does not state what is reasonable. How is reasonableness in releasing the vessel? $100,000, $1 million, $10 million, the law does not say. So reasonableness or the reasonable amount of bond is to be disputed. So they have to go to the court to define what is reasonable bond and amount of money. So I would say the same thing with Article 31 on TRIPS agreement. So the reasonable period of time, for instance, is what? 1 day, 48 hours, a year, 1 week. So you have to go to a dispute. And I think that is not what we are looking at. I think what we are looking at is or not the access is accessible, the vaccine is accessible for many different parts. And I would say, looking at the pricing, looking at the innovation coming up, we have already in Germany, BioNTech and Pfizer and Fosun, they have 90% effectivity. Yesterday, we heard Moderna has 94% effectivity. And we, of course, heard that China has Sinovac and Sinopharm, and many other countries are doing the same thing, including Indonesia. So I would say in the next year or two, there will be, in my prediction, at least 5 approved vaccines across the globe that can handle COVID-19. So if I may conclude my keynote, I think the issue that we need to look at it in the discussion is the treatment of the IPR on different aspects of COVID-19 in articles, in studies, in software, in the IPR of the other medical health related like MARS, for instance, and on the issue of the vaccines and the medication itself. So once again, I would like to extend my deepest thanks and appreciation for the invitation. I hope that these discussions will give us a clearer picture on what we do in IPR aspect of COVID-19 in the most comprehensive manner. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much for the Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to the Federal Republic of Germany for your greetings. Moving right along, we are going to have an opening remarks from Dean Faculty of Law Universitas Padjadjaran kepada Profesor Dr. An.An Chandrawulan SH-LLM. Kami silahkan. The screen is yours.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, warm welcome and gratitude to all guest speaker of this event. Our Rector, Professor Dr. Haja Rina Indiastuti, SA M.SIE, His Excellency Bapak Arif Havas Oegroseno, the Ambassador of Republic Indonesia to the Federal Republic of Germany, Director General of Post of Information Technology, Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, Professor Dr. Ahmad M.Ramli SHM MH VCBR, the panelist Mr. Yoshihiro Nagahashi from Japan Patent Office, Professor Irene Kalboli, Professor of Law, School of Law, Texas EM University, Mr. Chandrawulan, Chairman of Indonesian Federation Musician Union, and our distinguished guest, Professor Emeritus Dr. Edi Damian Esa. And all the participants of this event, I would like to extend my gratitude to all the committee from the Faculty of Law, Universitas Padjadjaran, and the Notary Alumni Association of Universitas Padjadjaran, Dr. Ranti Fauza Mayana SHMH, Chairwoman of the Notary Alumni Association of Universitas Padjadjaran, also Dr. Dadang Epi Sukarsa, SHMH, the Chief of Master of Public Notary Program, Faculty of Law, Universitas Padjadjaran, for hosting this intellectual seminar on the role of intellectual property during and post-COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has become a multidimensional crisis which has led to changes in our life, such as physical distancing, working from home, distant learning, and online businesses with several effects on socio-economic sector. Along with these changes, there is a silver lining, as we must be more creative and innovative in using our resources. This will potentially lead to new intellectual properties and also encourage the optimization of existing intellectual property. Intellectual properties are globally acknowledged as an important element of trade and economy, as reflected in the Agreement on Trade-Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, or TRIPS Agreement. Therefore, intellectual property such as copyright, trademark, patent, and industrial design must be protected from the economic value that is contained within. The support of the government in protecting existing IP must be also implemented by means of law enforcement. To overcome the pandemic, the utilization and monetization of IP must reach its optimum level through the synergy and collaboration between the state and stakeholders of intellectual property. I hope that new and existing innovation can be protected and can provide a substantial benefit for both creator and all of society. I hope this event can be an important forum for socialization, discussion, and coordination to educate related stakeholders and can benefit of participants with knowledge on IP. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for your warming greeting. Last but not least, we have opening remark from Director General of Post and Information Technology, Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, Republik Indonesia. He also Professor Faculty of Law Universitas Padjadjaran. Kepada Profesor Dr. Ahmad M.Ramli SHMH, FCB, ARB, kami silahkan. The screen is yours.
Terima kasih, Honorable Rector of Universitas Padjadjaran, Profesor Rina Indiastuti, His Excellency Ambassador Arif Havas Oegroseno, my good friend, Dean of Faculty of Law Padjadjaran University, Ibu An.An, and Dr. Ranti Fauzamayana, IKANO Chairwoman, respectable speakers, my friend Professor Aaron Kalboli from Texas A&M University, Professor Edi Damian, Mr. Chandra Darusman, my good friend, but he is a musician and IP expert, and my good friend from Japan, Mr. Yoshihiro Nagahashi. First of all, I would like to express my appreciation to IKANO as organizing committee who generously make this international webinar come through. In today's international webinar, we would like to learn the role of intellectual property in pandemic and post-COVID-19. Next, please. Next, please. Yes. Well, in pandemic situation, as we know, WIPO launched a new tool that tracks COVID-19 related intellectual property policy change or other measures being implemented by WIPO member state in their response to the global pandemic. We know that WIPO Director General, Mr. Francis Gurry, said that the COVID-19 IP policy tracker is an information repository that will help all stakeholders navigate change implemented by the worldwide IP community as it adjusts to the COVID-19 pandemic. Many national and regional IP offices, I think, are implementing measures to assist applicants and owners of IP rights. For example, by providing extension of time or grace period for fee payment. In addition, a number of member states have or are considering special measures, such as compulsory license, should potentially relevant product and technologies be identified. Next, please. Well, we can see the new fact in relation to the coronavirus pandemic that the European Union has proposed voluntary patent collection and cross-licensing for vaccines, treatment, and coronavirus tests in their draft resolution to the World Health Organization. And as we know, many international organizations us COVID-19 vaccines free of patent and chip. Once again, free of patent and chips. We have information that the cost to give vaccine to 3.7 billion people is cheaper than the cost and profits of the 10 biggest pharmaceutical companies in 4 months. It's very spectacular. Next. Yes, in related with pandemic situation, we have the TRIPS agreements in WTO agreement. In the TRIPS agreement, allow compulsory licensing and government use of patent without the authorization of its owner under a number of conditions aimed at protecting the legitimate interests of the patent holder. Yes, all WTO members may grant such licenses and government use orders for health technologies such as medicine, vaccines, and diagnostic, as well as any other product of technology needed to address COVID-19. Yes, next. Okay, it's finished. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. It is great to see you and so many experts here. Please be patient during this hard time. Everyone is restless and panic is not the answers. Thank you for listening to my speech. I hope everyone stay healthy and the pandemic can end sooner. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your greetings. Hadirin yang berbahagia, selanjutnya kita masuki acara inti pada siang hari ini, webinar internasional dengan tema The Role of Intellectual Property During and Post-Pandemic COVID-19. Well, distinguished participants, as mentioned before, we will hear the presentation from the speaker. So, without further ado, we straight move to the core of this event entitled The Role of Intellectual Property During and Post-Pandemic COVID-19 with our honorable speakers, Mr. Yoshihiro Nagahashi, Mr. Chandrawulan, Professor Irene Kauboli, Professor Emeritus Dr. Edi Damian SH, Dr. Ranti Fauza Mayana SH, and will be moderated by Dr. Laina Rafianti SH MH, Head of International Unit Faculty of Law Universitas Padjadjaran. For Dr. Laina Rafianti SHMH, the screen is yours.
Thank you for the Master of Ceremony who lead this event smoothly from the beginning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, warm welcome and my gratitude to all previous keynote speakers, Ibu Rector, Professor Rina Indiastuti, His Excellency, Ambassador Arif Havas Oegroseno, and opening remark speakers, Professor Dr. An.An Chandrawulan SH-LLM, as a Dean of Faculty of Law Universitas Padjadjaran, and Director General of Post of Information Technology, Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, Professor Dr. Ahmad M.Ramli SH-MH FCBR. Thank you for 350 participants to this seminar from local, national to international audience who are exciting and with full of Sorry about these technical matters. During this new normal situation, we cannot meet each other in person. Already joined with us 5 panelists to present their thoughts and discussion with all participants. We have Mr. Yoshihiro Nagahashi from Japan Patent Office. Good afternoon, Mr. Yoshihiro.
Yep.
We also have Pak Chandra Darusman. Apa kabar, Pak Chandra? Prof. Irene Kalbali from Texas A&M University. How are you, Professor? And we also have Professor Dr. Edi Damian SH. Apa kabar, Prof? And Dr. Natari Ranti Fauza Mayana SH. Each panelist has 15 minutes to present their notes. We will discuss all speakers presenting except for Mr. Yoshihiro Nagahashi and Pak Chandra Darusman, who have to leave this meeting after their presentation session. Our first speaker, Mr. Yoshihiro Nagahashi. He is a senior analyst for international property information in the procedure for registration at the Registration Office in Japan Patent Office. His educational background is an economist from Niigata University, Japan. He has a lot of experience in the Japan Patent Office since 1986. He knows Indonesia very well because he has had become a chief advisor of JICA project, IPR Corporation for Director General of Intellectual Property, Jakarta from 2012 until 2017. His notes in today's seminar concern GPO's experiences against pandemic COVID-19. Mr. Yoshihiro Nagahashi, time is yours.
Terima kasih.
Sama-sama.
All the people who may concern this webinar, Bapak Ibu sekalian, selamat siang. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to make presentation in front of you. Today, I'd like to talk about the current situation against pandemic COVID-19 in Japan, especially in the Japan Patent Office. Next slide, please. Item number from 2 to 4, I'd like to introduce of the action by the government in Japan and Japan Patent Office. Next slide, please. Pandemic COVID-19, it is said the third wave is coming, especially in Europe. During the pandemic, it makes difficult for direct human communication. But on the other hand, new ideas, new tools, new technologies can solve the situation. Also to make us to overcome the similar situation even in the future. Webinars and web meetings are getting common nowadays. Next slide, please. So I would like to introduce about the government actions as a state of emergency. On 7th of April, the first state of emergency was issued by Prime Minister. The contents are describing just on the page 3. And the Prime Minister makes a declaration and specifies the period and area of urgent action based on the new coronavirus countermeasures special law. And the prefectural governors of the target areas, the governors can ask residents to help prevent infection, including refraining from going out, unless it is necessary to maintain their livelihood. And governors can request and give instructions such as school closures, restrictions, and the use of on the use of facilities where many people gather, such as department stores and movie theaters, and owners of land and buildings to develop temporary medical facilities if there is a particular need, can be used without a consent of, and governors can request of or instruct the carrier to deliver medicines and medical devices, and if necessary, expropriate medicines in the event of emergency. Next slide, please. The state of emergency issued 4 times, including cancel 5 times. So the first and on 7th of April, including Tokyo, 7 prefectures out of 47 prefectures. And 16th of April, the emergency state of emergency extends to all the prefectures. And 40th canceled and 8 prefectures, and 21st, May 21st and 3 prefectures. Then, so 25th of May, all the rest of prefectures, the state of emergency has canceled. Next slide, please. And this shows the JPO's action. And according to the state of emergency, refraining from going out is not compulsory, but ask level. That's why government offices are not closed. But for avoiding human contact, one of the target present worker in the offices would be half, and the rest of half to do as a telework. Some work to deal with paper documents or using special workstation in deal with confidential or database cannot do as telework. So some kind of work are delayed. Then issued announcement on the web, like the slide, page 5. This slide. And next page, please. Next slide, please. And the internal system. So first item is change commuting time. It's like now the not only JPO and the Kasumigaseki and the government area is now in the morning, and the time to arrive at the office recommended earlier than 8 o'clock in the morning or later than 10 o'clock. It means, and 9 o'clock is most crowded, then we have to avoid this time. And so the latter part, 2 items, extension of designated response period and partial grace of stamp is, it means that some procedures to submit the documents with flexibility. Next slide, please. It's a stamp, the image of the seal. So the left-hand side is a sample of representative seal. It's describing kabushiki gaisha hankoya.com. It means hankoya.com corporation. So it is necessary to register the seal when the company is established to the register with the Legal Affairs Bureau. On the right-hand side, small one, it's a sample of a personal seal. So it's describing Tokugawa in kanji character. It is not necessary to register all the citizens, but so if we have a big contract, the certification to registered seal is needed. And also we need when to buy or sell a car. And now the government would like to abolition of stamp, at least reduce to use the stamp to reduce the opportunity to use the stamp. So why I explain about the stamp? So one of the reasons is to stamp is one of Japanese culture for a long time instead of signature. And also many kind of documents submit to JPO need stamp for identification. And now this slide shows and so next phase, so instead of stamps, so now the JPO think about. So many of application documents are using electronic filing system, but some procedures such as change address of the rights or transfer the rights. Now we are considering to almost all the documents changed to in using XML documents tentatively. Next page, please. So it is as a conclusion, a very small conclusion, but it is important to strengthen security, yeah, including identify verification in the procedure. The sufficient verification is required to simplify the procedure while maintaining the security level. And changes in the environment will force us to review our unique culture. Okay, this situation and culture is different by each countries, but if it helps you, I'm so happy. And rest of next 2 pages, just for your reference. So it shows an urgent recommendation by government subcommittee countermeasures issued last week, 9th of November. Okay, that's all my presentation, and thank you very much. Terima kasih
You're
banyak.
welcome. Terima kasih kembali. Wah, ternyata bisa bicara bahasa Indonesia ini ya, Bapak Nagahashi. Terima kasih, Pak. Due to the limited available time of Mr. Yoshihiro Nagahashi to join with us, I invite for the Q&A session for Mr. Yoshihiro, if any.
Maybe
Is there
so.
Any question for Mr. Yoshihiro? Yeah.
Maybe it's difficult for to answer. Simple question is okay.
Okay, one question is okay, yeah? If there are any question for Mr. Nagahashi, please. Yeah, if there's no question yet, we can keep in mind the question, and we can go to the next speaker. And the important thing is what has mentioned by Mr. Nagahashi is there is the changes in as the impact of this COVID-19, yeah, and everything. Usually, it is not. It is in paper. In this case, it becomes digitalized, right? Of submission of document. Yeah, when you mentioned about the Kasumi Gaseki, I remember that place. That time I was there. I've been there for some event in that place. Well, thank you very much. It is an honor to have you in this seminar. Thank you very much, and see you in another occasion. We move to the following speaker. Pak Chandra, apa kabar Pak Chandra?
Baik, alhamdulillah. Suara saya jelas?
Jelas Pak Chandra. It is nice to see you again on screen,
Likewise.
Pak Chandra. Yes, likewise. Okay, I just would like to share for the audience about your short bio. Pak Chandra was graduated from Faculty of Economy, Universitas Indonesia. He has experience as a banker, also lecturer and researcher at the Faculty of Economy, Universitas Indonesia, even as a book writer. Faculty of Law Universitas Padjadjaran has been establishing kind of cooperation with him since he was in a United Nations diplomat in the World Intellectual Property Organization in Singapore. As we know also, Pak Chandra Darusman is a musician, songwriter, arranger, and singer. If the audience is familiar with Jazz Goes to Campus, he was the founder of that eldest jazz festival in Indonesia and Asia. He was also the awardee of Best Music Album in 2018 Emmy Awards. And recently, his position is the chairman of the Indonesian Federation Musician Union. But on this occasion, he is not here to entertain us as an artist. Maybe next time. He will further be explaining on the IP system as the engine of the development innovation wheel. To Pak Chandra Darusman, time is yours, Pak.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Terima kasih, Mbak Moderator, Ibu. Good afternoon, good morning to all of you. It is my great pleasure to be invited and be part of this webinar. Honorable Rector, Dean of the Faculty of Law, Universitas Padjadjaran, Director General M.Ramli, Pak Dubes Havas, and all distinguished speakers, Professor Irene Kalboli, how are you? Nice to see you again, and very healthy, Pak Edi Damian and the other Yoshihiro-san. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm the only musician here who is brave enough to speak among professors and PhDs. So please bear in mind that I will not speak about the politics of COVID. I will not speak about the logistics of COVID-19, but I would like to share with you my views, and I would use two key words in explaining what I would like to say. Those two words are momentum and transformation of this role of intellectual property during and post-COVID-19. Now, I wonder whether we are in place to use the word post-COVID, because I don't see yet the end of this pandemic. And in fact, I think COVID-19 will be a part of our life, just as 100 years ago when influenza became part of our lives, right? So never mind, that's just a title. We all know what we're going to talk about. So I will see this IP, eventually it is the era of pandemic, yes, but I would like to see intellectual property being lifted among Indonesians. And as I mentioned, two words, momentum and transformation, that we need to realize and we need to benefit from and take the most of it. Okay, first slide, please. Next. Let me start by saying this. I'm not trying to say the obvious, but what I'm trying to say here is that innovation and creativity actually are the two important wheels of intellectual property as an engine of growth. Now, during my few slides, I will try to sort of set the tone for myself and for my presentation that we all would like to see IP being lifted to the highest level so that the country, Indonesia, as we're talking about Indonesia, really depend its future on the use of IP as the engine of growth with its pair of wheels, which is innovation and creativity. Now, in WPO language, innovation is sort of valued with the innovations, inventions of industrial property, and creativity is more towards the art, science, and literature. So having this, what we used to call tree, the IP tree, actually are the two wheels, I would like to say the two wheels of intellectual property. Next. Now, I would like just to, I'm not trying to teach the fish to swim, but I'm just trying to put the two wheels. This one is the innovation wheel, which actually is, each of them are cycles. The innovation wheel is a cycle, actually, as we all know. So if you see this chart, it starts with a red box and goes into the yellow box and goes into the green box, which is actually a cycle that all countries, actually proven by the developed countries, that is being implemented, is happening in the most developed countries, where this cycle is smooth and getting bigger and bigger in each country. So this is the innovation wheel of IP. Next, please. The next one is actually the creativity wheel, which actually is similar to what the cycle of innovation is doing, right? Right from the red box, which starts with the creativity of composer, performers, and producers, and go throughout the cycle, giving this cycle a logical turn and produce work, which then the profit will be plowed back into research. In this instance, is the artist and repertoire research in the field of music. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, these two diagrams actually are the two wheels of intellectual property that we all nations strive to make it smooth and bigger and bigger. Next. Now, I mentioned about the similarities of these two wheels, the value chain of each of them. If you see on the left side and on the right side, astonishingly, it is performed by those who actually are doing the same task. If you have those researchers, inventors, innovators, yes, okay, stay here, okay. If you see on the left side, researchers and inventors, innovators under innovation is actually the creators, artists, and producers in the creativity sector. Laboratories on the left side is identical to recording studios, incubators, identical to music publishers, factory is identical to duplicating facilities, startups, as we all know, is a very important element in the value chain, is the same also that we have in the music industry, which we call indies, independents, and so forth and so forth. As you go along down each column, you can see that each of the cycle tries to reinvest their profit be it in innovation or be it in the creative sector. So these similarities are quite astonishing. I've been able to actually observe this because my previous, before joining the intellectual property organization WIPO, I was active in the music industry. So when I entered WIPO, it opened my eyes that the innovation cycle actually is the same as the creativity cycle. Next, please. Now, I would like to now give you some figures. Yeah, bear in mind that two keywords I mentioned in the early statement of my presentation: momentum and transformation. We all want to see Indonesia strive to become a knowledge-based economy. All right. So before and during pandemic, we have these figures. It's quite intriguing, quite an eye-opener. In 1990, the manufacturing sector, which I use as an indicator of how far an economy is way into a knowledge-based economy. So the manufacturing sector in Indonesia contributes 30% of GDP. That is in 1990. In 1998, it fell into 19%. In 2018, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, increased to 19.82% of GDP. So I think this is we have to see this in a, this is a very important figure if we want to see whether IP is really doing its work, the IP system doing its work for Indonesia to move into the knowledge-based economy. Next. Another indicator of Indonesia's capability of innovation is the patent applications. Now, I'm offering you the diagram which I extracted from the WIPO publication 2020 about the patent applications country of origin, and comparing the two last years, two previous years of 2018 and 2019. If you see the capability of Indonesia, it is actually underperforming. Now, I don't mean in a negative sense underperforming. Underperforming is actually the same as great potential. You see, Indonesia has produced only 7 PCT applications, whereas Singapore is about now 1,229 in 2019. So if you see this, it seems that there's a paradox. The smaller the country, the more it has reached its achievements. So again, this is an indicator of where Indonesia stands right now. Next. Obviously, if we see the indicators of the percentage of R&D of GDP, again, Indonesia has the lowest percentage, 0.9. And according to the Global Innovation Index, we have Indonesia in 85th place, Singapore again at the 8th place, and having the most highest percentage of R&D. Next. Next, I will just, okay. So then we're talking about momentum and transformation. Indonesia, as we all know, we are trying to transform our country, our economy, to a more knowledge-based economy. What drives this transformation actually? Is it legislation, technology, infrastructure? According to my observation, I think, next slide. What drives the economy is, again, I cannot overemphasize enough innovation and creativity as its pair of wheels. Currently, the current Minister of Research, Pak Brojonegoro, Pak Bambang, has been able to lead the country or his ministry to produce 1,600 inventions during the pandemic. This is phenomenal because, as we all know, because of the pandemic, it creates a sense of urgency to innovate. And it is proven by what Minister of Research has been doing for the past 8-9 months, is to galvanize the private sector, the government sector, and the universities to work together and produce 1,600 inventions. So necessity confronting pandemic. Next. Now, the challenge is what now Indonesia is trying to boost its underperformance. And we all know that the government has focused itself in 9 areas of 49 products using its limited research funds. In the future, we learned that Indonesia is focusing on food security, energy conversion, converting fossil into using palm oil. And in the short term, as mentioned by earlier speaker, solutions against pandemics, among the 1,600 inventions, ventilators, testing, and so forth, and red and white research to produce own vaccine. Now, red and white here is, I'm not thinking about wine, red wine and white wine, but red and white vaccine for Indonesia. Next. So my conclusion is, first, actually the pandemic is a catalyst for digitalization, for innovation and collaboration. So actually this is the momentum to transform Indonesia's economy, Indonesia's capability to innovate in order to use the 2 wheels of intellectual property engine. And if we do it correctly, Indonesia will become better and not underperforming as we know now. Yeah? But one other conclusion is that we need to place the need for R&D as having the same sense of crisis as we are now experiencing. Because of pandemic, we have a sense of crisis, and the sense of crisis actually produced 1,600 inventions. Now, if we could transform this sense of crisis into research, as I mentioned earlier, the 49 products and 9 areas, I think Indonesia will be one of the most advanced country in 2045. Next. Now, I leave you with this. This is a metaphor, yeah, a bicycle with the engine of intellectual property with its 2 wheels, innovation and creativity. Hopefully from a bicycle, we can transform it as a motorcycle and a vehicle of full powered. Lastly, I would like to say that actually music is a very good factor for healing against the COVID. Yeah, if you listen more to music, your immunity will increase, and that is also a remedy to cope with the pandemic. So I leave you with that, with the philosophy of bicycle, and we all hope that we can survive and will be bigger and stronger nation in the future. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very interesting, Pak Chandra. Thank you. You open our mind that innovation and creation is both of them has the same effort. The creator and also the inventor have the same effort for the contribution for the chain of the intellectual property. And you also mentioned that this pandemic is a catalyst for digitalization, innovation, and also collaboration. And also the last thing you said that music for healing in this pandemic of COVID-19. And my question is, how many songs that you created since this pandemic?
I about 5 or 6 songs, and it's being recorded right now. So it's we have much time now working from home. But musicians are used to working from home because we have our studio at home. So we are used to working from home actually.
Yes, that's the point. More creative, right? Okay. Is there any question from the participant for Pak Chandra in this session? Because I'm afraid Pak Chandra will leave the meeting soon.
Yes, unfortunately, I have another Zoom meeting. So I need to apologize for my absence, especially to Professor Kalbuli and Professor Edi Damian.
Well, just a minute. I think we have one question. Is there any? On my chat, okay. Yes.
Yes, I see the question, whether
Yes,
the
please.
innovation in Indonesia is underperforming. Is it possible? That's because of the realization of the citizen about IP is not high, like seeing, there are many factors. And one of the factors actually is the fragmentation of the 5,000 agents of IP. We have universities, we have government institutions. We need to actually tie them up together to have really a national IP strategy and innovation strategy. But I think Professor Bambang Brojonegoro is working on it, so I'm very optimistic about it.
Well, thank you for your simple but very impressive answer. Thank you once again. Thank you, Pak Chandra Darusman. See you in the next event. And the next speaker will be Professor Irene Kalboli. Hi, Professor Irene. It is useful for me to say Irene than Irene. How is Singapore?
It's okay. You know, it's I don't know. It's tough to be trapped in an island where you can't really go anywhere, and so I miss very much traveling, and I miss traveling to Indonesia, sure. And it's but you know we have to do the best, as you know many other speakers said about the situation we have, and we are blessed to have this pandemic in a time in history when technology can still allow us to work and function and being in touch, not as normal, but as close to normal as possible, I would say. We are very, very blessed. So,
yes, or another new normal. What will be happen in the next time? We don't know yet. Okay, I would like to read your short bio, Professor.
Yes, so I wanted to share my screen.
Yes, please. Can you do that? I'm sure you can do that.
Yes, I should be doing that.
Yes. But exactly. I have to read out your short bio for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Professor Irene Kalboli is Professor of Law at Texas A&M University School of Law, Academic Fellow at the School of Law, University Geneva, Visiting Professor at Nanyang Technological University, Senior Fellow at Melbourne Law School, and Transatlantic Technology Law Fellow at Stanford University. Irene's research focuses on IP, international trade, and cultural heritage law. He has written a lot of books, and the publishers are very well-known publishers such as Cambridge and also Oxford University Press. And she is a member of the editorial board of the Queen Mary Journal of Intellectual Property, the Journal of Intellectual Property Law and Practices in Oxford, and the WIPO WTO Colloquium Papers. An elected member of the American Law Institute, she serves the leadership position in a variety of professional organizations, including the International Law Association, the board of the European Policy for Intellectual Property Law Association, the International Trademark Association, and Association of American Law Schools. Irene regularly acts as an expert for national governments and international organizations, including the World Intellectual Property Organization, the EU Intellectual Property Office and Commission, and several national IP offices. Her closeness with UNPAD has been maintaining since 2016, when she was a guest lecturer appointed by the WIPO for IPR classes at the Master of Law. She additionally becomes an instructor for certified geographical indication training in UNPAD for last year and the upcoming event in the next December. And as good news, she will be soon as an honorary professor at the Faculty of Law, Universitas Padjadjaran, starting in this semester. He is a batik lover. She has a lot of batik collection and know exactly which is the real batik or printing batik. Interesting. Please welcome Professor Irene Kalboli.
So, Lina, many thanks for the too kind introduction. I am a major fan of Indonesia, and I am every time extremely impressed by how smart, innovative, kind, and hardworking everybody is. As Lina has also said, I'm very proud to be affiliated with the UNPAD and to be working with you all, with Lina, with the Professor Miranda Ayu, and with the Dean. It's my very pleasure to be here today with so many distinguished speakers, the Rector, the Ambassador, Director General, Professor Ramli, and the fellow panelists, of course, Chandra is a dear friend, a mentor, somebody that I've been spending time during his tenure at WIPO Singapore many times, has been incredibly supportive of everything we were doing as academics. So I feel, this is really a very, very important family for us. May I confirm that you are seeing my screen? You see my slides?
Yes.
So I don't want to spend too much time because I think the previous speaker have said many of the things related to COVID-19 and it was very interesting to me, in particular to hear your ambassador position, and this in part, it's a topic that is a very hot topic, but people tend to be running out with emotion, particularly when people are not so inside the industry or inside the technical or the diplomatic development. There is this a bit very general debate about vaccines and access, and we should waive all intellectual property, or should we discharge for the vaccine or the medication. I think what His Excellency has said that was very important is we have nothing to share yet. We will have something to share very soon. Results are coming through and they're very positive. And these are just two of the vaccine in the making. It will very well be that most of the countries that have capability, including Indonesia, will develop national vaccines and at the same time be able to have international ones. And the real challenge of this, the current situation, more than intellectual property, is really manufacturing. It's producing, it's the everything from the reagents to the glass to the freezing temperature, the equipment to keep the medications and the vaccines safe, the syringes, the inoculation, the techniques. And so there is, the debate is far more complex than it is time brushed. And so I think, it's really important to keep emotion in control and to try to be as technical as possible because indeed this pandemic has really shown a lot of cooperation. Scientists have cooperated as never before in history, again, because of the sharing, the ease of sharing information. We have heard a lot of bad rhetorics by politicians. We have heard a lot of divisions in the international multilateral system. This is very damaging. It's damaging for countries' reputation. It's damaging for people emotion. But on the ground, we have seen, and unfortunately, the news don't talk enough about it, and they should, because that is the real story. We have seen cooperation as never before. We have seen fast light speed of innovation. We have seen repurposing of all sorts of businesses to really cope with the pandemic and help. And we have seen unprecedented international cooperation also in trying to help. And I think all these are very important things that we need to remember. So, my very brief remarks are a bit more general about intellectual property and economic development for developing countries, looking specifically at Indonesia. And, I like to put these slides because I think it's the the dialogue, the narrative here is very much a three-head. It's innovation, because intellectual property should promote innovation. And intellectual property is both the rights and the limitations, governance and responsibility. And I think nothing more than the current pandemic has really shown how important it is to have good governance to actually trigger new innovation. I'm an Italian citizen. I was born and raised in Italy, and then I spent a lot of part of my adult life in the United States, and then I've been living in Asia since 2012. And it's really disheartening to see some of the things that are coming out of the news outlet in the United States right now about politics of distribution of vaccines, and some politician making the statement they make. It's disheartening. That's bad governance. And I really like the comparison with His Excellency made about Africa. Africa is often looked down as developing, least developed countries. Well, Africa is giving to the world a lesson. I think Asia is giving to the world a lesson. And many of the least developed countries in Asia are giving the world a lesson. In good governance, in caring for the people. And this is really is something that we all need to remember and hopefully learn from. And so it's governance, is responsibility, and how that can create a balanced system in innovation. So of course, we all know what intellectual property is. I like to call it the cooperation of many minds. There is no invention. This is probably one of the most famous Indonesian invention, Gojek, that looks at disruptive technology and look at new business and opportunities. But there is no more relevant invention. There is no relevant invention that is made by just one person. It's always an incremental process and always needs the cooperation of many minds, many actors, capitals, infrastructures, and so on. And so it's really how we plan that, if we plan, or if we need to plan. And it's, to me, Pachanda was mentioning the innovation strategy at the more governance level. I will discuss that briefly. I still believe that disruption can lead to better innovation. I think the country that truly are topping the innovation index, and even this index are, they really don't show the whole pictures. There are countries that are lower in the index that are much more innovative than countries are higher in the index, just because some of these countries meet the standards, but they actually spend their time meeting the standard because they want to be in the high innovation index, because they want to attract more capital. But in reality, there is not much innovation in this country. I mean, I don't want to make any name, but there are some countries that are really not much innovative at all, or very little innovation compared to other countries. And so, these ranks are important, but we need always to take them with a pinch of salt. But certainly any innovation is the result of a lot of cooperation. And so access and information are key for innovation. And when we look at innovation hubs, we can look at the Silicon Valley. We can look at some of the new innovation in the Jakarta and Indonesian hub. We can look at Vietnam. We can look at some of the Israel and what they've been able to do technologically. There is a lot of countries that really promote an ecosystem of innovation without having a top-down planning. And that's very often is what makes countries very successful. To have a top-down planning is not working in the long term. History has proven it over and over throughout century that you need to have freedom of expression, disruption, to a reasonable extent to be able to actually have long-standing and long-term innovation and attracting the brightest mind to your place, be that Silicon Valley, so then they can actually create and innovate. This is my love for batik. But Indonesia is so much more than just textiles and cultural heritage. Indonesia, I agree, will be one of the innovative hubs of the future. It's already going there. I rarely seen smart, so innovative young generation in any country. And with the right mentality, hardworking, very focused, as I see the students, and the science students in particular in Indonesia. So I really have high hopes for the country, and here's where good governance will be very important. Still, Indonesia does remain at this stage a heavily manufacturing country, natural resources driven country. And so there's a lot of room for improvement. But I think, slowly we're getting there, and we are leapfrogging a lot as well. So, what's the role of intellectual property in all that? IP helps giving a competitive advantage to innovators, because otherwise the cost of producing would just be wiped off too fast. However, IP creates an ecosystem of various rights, and as a very important role for economic development. But IP is both an engine for prosperity, but should not become what I call the gorilla in the room. We need to have limits to intellectual property protection as well. We need to have exceptional limitation. We need to have, like in the patent, this dialogue, the nuclear option of compulsory license, because that allows negotiation at the table. We need to weigh benefit and cost, and then try to tailor what is the best solution on a case-by-case basis. I say IP is public interest, and I believe that, even though public interest can be a multiple type of public interest. But IP is public interest because IP also includes exception and limitations. And these balance between rights and exception is really what create the ecosystem for the private-public partnership that is necessary for a vibrant intellectual property system to function. And so, there has been a lot of literature on IP in development. And again, we want this engine for innovation. We don't want to have the gorilla in the room, as we say in the space. And I think, here, access will be crucial. It's not so much because some countries are able to keep the pandemic more at bay than others. It's because whoever can, vaccinate the population faster and will be able to travel faster, recover economically faster, rather than have to be home locked down, not having access, to normal shopping or other economic activity, or be able to attract back to their economy. I can tell you, I live in Singapore, and the economy is on its knees right now because of the lack of people transiting through Singapore. And, Singapore being so small, it's really a hub for international trade of all sorts. And be able to have a strong vaccination for anybody who comes in, and anybody inside would really be the way to recover. Otherwise, it's going to be very problematic in the medium term. And so that's why access becomes crucial. It's how you can restart an economy, how you can really make sure your economy functions. But this is an AIDS pandemic picture. As it was pointed out, this is rarely just a developing country versus developed country problem. It's a country by country problem. It's a type of population versus type of population problem. It's rich versus poor. It's healthier or younger versus senior. We have seen the victims of COVID tend to be people are frail, people are older, people are more senior. In the United States, clearly people who are of a lower income bracket, because they tend to have more diabetes and more pre-existing condition, particularly African Americans, Latinos, and that's clearly our heartbreaking situation. And so we know that WIPO and WTO have certain flexibilities, and the sustainability development goal also fit within this narrative. And so again, IPR are the heart of development, and Indonesia is a country that is it's growing. These are the most innovative countries as for the latest development at the global index. But again, I don't see Indonesia being anywhere behind any country in South Asia because of the human resources it has, because of the natural resources it has, and the human ingenuity it has. It just needs to get more organized, but the future I think is bright, and I want to think like that. In fact, when you look at the difference between the most innovative and the biggest, size does matter, and you can see where Indonesia stands, and that it's just an indication that we only have room to grow. And being largest economy, you can see how we are number 4. We'll continue to be number 4. I say we because sorry, I integrate myself with Indonesia right now. And so, these are all more charts for the global index, but clearly, there is a lot of space for innovation hubs in Indonesia. And since the country's only room to grow, is certainly not capped or maxed out, the number of patents, the number of designs, and so on. There is only room to grow more and to add more technology. And here, I will send these slides, and I already sent the slides to Lina, so she can share them to whoever wants them. And so here you have some of the indicators from Indonesia. So, in conclusion, intellectual property is crucial. We need to manage it strategically. It's important for developing countries. IP experts are important, but we should not get lost in the IP side. We need to think about the innovation cycle, and we need to think at innovation could be closed innovation or could be open innovation with more spillovers. And, I think to a large extent, the COVID pandemic has really been using a more open innovation, but that was already coming through. I think Gojek is probably a great example of that as well. And disruptive technologies are in many ways the way of the future. Now, too much disruption, it's not necessarily good for the economy all at once, but we do need to have some new way of thinking, leapfrogging, and problem to solve in a way that might be different to really create these groundbreaking innovations. And that doesn't happen unless country have a culture of innovation, not just trying to, match the ranks, because that's, we need just to think about which country actually brought to the world incredibly new innovation. And I would say when you just look at, what Gojek was able to do and some of the other Indonesian innovation and creativity, that's really, that's where I think we should focus. And so, with that, I conclude my presentation. Information and knowledge is the key, and it's the key to progress and development. And we need to have a balance between access and protection. And that's really important. And education, it's at the basis. That's why it's so important that university like Padjadjaran and other universities in Indonesia promote the study, not just of intellectual property, but the study of the rule of law, because governance is so important. And at the same time, the science and innovations in general. So many thanks for the opportunity to be with you today and to present.
Thank you very much, Professor. Professor Irene Kalbuli has presented about the mainstreaming of intellectual property in the perspective of the developing country. Well, as she said that she will share the PowerPoint presentation to us. Thank you, Professor. And we move to the next speaker. He is our emeritus professor in the Faculty of Law. In his 80th age, he's still motivating and encouraging us to be a good teacher and researcher. Professor Edi Damian expertise is in the field of intellectual property and international law. He has written many books and the publication, mostly in the event of his birthday. I know that very well, on September the 13th. Became an expert in the DGIP Ministry of Law and Human Rights, and facing various cases on IP is his expertise. His time is always available for his students, from doctorate candidate, postgraduate, and also an undergraduate student. In this occasion, he will present concerning the role of IP during and post-pandemic COVID-19 from an academic perspective. Professor Edi Damian, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Let me first of all express my sincere gratitude to my faculty for Padjadjaran University and IKANO for their initiative to deepen the knowledge and understanding of the role of IP during and post-pandemic COVID. The policy role of intellectual property during and post-pandemic COVID-19 are faced with the demand for a comprehensive academic analysis. In this reason, to the enhancing the role of IP in order to meet the growing need for solving the pandemic problem as soon as possible, some critical aspects that make a distinction between the role of IP during and post-pandemic COVID is based on the case of a crisis in the economic fundamental economy, the strategy of economic recovery, public awareness of IPR, the protection and the law of enforcement of IPR. Next. Talking about the crisis in the economic fundamental economy, it is better to use as the main cause of the crisis an autocracy. It means an absolute governing. Every state is oriented inward-looking for solving the pandemic COVID-19 problems and its impact. In relation with this autocracy characteristic that happened in every state, occur a problem between the strategy aspect of economic recovery first and the strategy aspect of public awareness of IPR and the protection and or the law enforcement of IPR. Next. Some basic optimization strategy that make a qualification between the parts of IP during and post-pandemic COVID-19 depends on the reason for an emergency. Secondly, monetary central economy, the methodology of financial recuperation, public familiarity with IPR, the security, and last one, additionally, law authorization of the IPR. Next. For the optimization strategy of the IP enforcement and combating pandemic COVID-19, there are some linkages between IP and the public policies in the field of health sector. Health sector, education sector, science and technology sector. With the explanation that for the optimization strategy of the IT in the health sector can be mentioned. First, pharmaceutical industry's integration of IT policy into health sector development of pharmaceutical industry development with producing medicines and vitamins, and of course the investment in domestic production of medicines and medical equipment for battling pandemic COVID-19. Secondly, research, promotion of scientific research and application of scientific advancement in healthcare activities, especially basic medicine, public health, and health management in the pandemic COVID-19 situation. The last one, that is the databases, development of health information database at all levels, upgrading information quality, accuracy, representation, timeless, and sufficiently. Next. In the education sector can be mentioned to promote access to teaching materials, strengthen IT awareness, promote IT training and capacity building in science, technology, and innovations for the improvement of capability and capacity within the government agencies for the better appreciation of the interaction between IT and other policy areas. And in the field of IP sector strategic linkage between with science and technology, stipulate an IP reward policy for the research institution in the universities, where inventor is owner of the invention created in the research institution of the university. Secondly, funded research by the government or private sector. Third part, collaboration with foreign research. The last one is that students should be involved in the strategic linkage with the science and technology. Further, next, please. For the optimization strategy, it's recommended to use these three principles. These are: expect the unexpected, consider the worst thing is happening. Secondly, thinking the unthinkable, that means thinking solution that never has happened before. And thirdly, mobilization of IT resources for use against the impact of pandemic COVID-19. Thank you for all your attention. And the way to get started, the role of the IP in the during and post-pandemic 19 is to quit talking and begin doing. Thank you very much.
You are always welcome, Professor Edi Damian. You're very philosophical to present what you wrote on your PowerPoint presentation. Well, we have also the last but not least, we have Dr. Notary Ranti Fauza Mayana SH as a chairwoman of IKANO, Notary Alumni Association of Universitas Padjadjaran, and also a lecturer and researcher of IP Law at Faculty of Law, Universitas Padjadjaran. She graduated from Faculty of Law, Universitas Padjadjaran in 1993, notary specialist from Universitas Padjadjaran in 1996, and obtained cum laude doctoral degree in 2002 from Universitas Padjadjaran. Her PhD research topic was the protection of industrial design in Indonesia concerning global trade era. She wrote several books concerning intellectual property. Moreover, she has participated at several national and international conferences in Tokyo, Cambridge, Singapore, Bangkok, and other countries to present her research papers. Some of her research manuscripts have been published in international journals and proceedings. She actively contributes her opinions to the national mass media such as Pikiran Rakyat. Currently, she is also the reviewer of Padjadjaran Law Journal and NTUT Journal of Intellectual Property Law and Management. Today, she will present on the intellectual property development for sustainable and resilient business during and past COVID-19. Please welcome Ibu Dr. Ranti Fauza Mayana.
Thank you, Dr. Laina, and thank you to all the previous speakers for their valuable insights. Having heard the remarkable presentation from the previous speakers, I believe that all of us gaining a fruitful session in this webinar, and allow me to present some insights and some additional spirit on how important it is to foster intellectual property development for sustainable and resilient business during and post-COVID-19 pandemic. As we know that COVID-19 pandemic has created a widespread economic slowdown and severe economic impact in different economic sectors and negatively affecting global economy. A global economy recession due to COVID-19 pandemic seems inevitable, and it's hard to predict how long the recession will last, nor when the countries around the world can fully recover from this pandemic. COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia adversely impacted national economic growth in Indonesia during the second quarter 2020, where almost all economic sectors experienced a contraction in the second quarter of 2020. The impact of COVID-19 provides opportunities and challenges for a business to survive. The economic constraint urged every business actor to continue to innovate in order to survive. Indonesia needs to rebuild its economy by effectively utilizing the unlimited potential resource, that human creativity. Weightless economy is economic concern with intangible products and services. And today's weightless economy consists of information and communication technology, as well as intellectual properties. As the world gradually stepping to the new normal, it's highly important to formulate the guidelines as the path to reopening the economy while mitigating the risk of COVID-19 escalation and protecting vulnerable populations. It's important to encourage the emergence of new business and support the survival and development of existing businesses during and post-pandemic, as the effort to mitigate the crisis and develop economic resilience without abandoning the safety protocol. Why IP is so important? IP is generated from human creation of useful products and process beneficial for daily lives, also as the part of problem solving. Human creativity has unlimited potential in creating economically valuable products with relatively low cost. The development of IP potentially create new job opportunities that favor the artistic and cultural values of the Indonesian people and local economic resources. So we can see from weightless economic concept to utilization of intellectual property, we can formulate a formulation of creative economy. John Hopkins developed creative economic concept to describe new economic system model where value based on ideas and creativity rather than traditional resources like land, labor, and capital. Creative economy focus on the creation of product, utilizing skills, creativity, and ideas as intellectual capital. Creative economy covers widely strategic subsector consists of architecture, TV and radio, film, animations and video, art and craft, game and application, publication, interior designs, music, visual communication design, fashion, advertising, performing arts, photography, product design, culinary, and visual arts. And amidst the coronavirus outbreak, creative economy provides existing opportunities supported by the incline of heavy traffic toward the online platform. Intellectual property, intellectual capital holds important key and plays important role in each and every stage of business development. Intellectual capital plays important role as business capital in product development, value creation, and generating income for startup business. Intellectual capital plays important role in innovation, business development, and in creating the competitiveness of the product to support business growth. And intellectual capital contributes in changing the ordinary business to being a leader in the field and in the industry and enable to support business expansion. Intellectual capital has gained increasing attention, particularly after 2008 financial crisis. Intellectual capital, especially intellectual property, came as the solution to create new business and reopen the economy without having to provide many physical assets and funding as business capital. Intellectual property is a small business friendly because effectiveness, high value, and sustainability. Effectiveness, for example, IT, as a creation of the mind potentially, become one of the most effective assets for business. For once it's created, the IP asset can be utilized many times. For example, from a creation of a song uploaded in YouTube and gaining viewers, the song also can be used as soundtrack or ringback tone. High value, it means to gain the high value, creativity ought to meet two criteria. The first one is must produce something new or new value added, intellectual property as the result. And the second one is must be valuable, useful, and beneficial, has economic value. Effective and comprehensive intellectual property asset management support business growth and increase business value by utilizing IP asset. Sustainability. IP is one element in a broader strategy to support innovation and sustainable business development. IP creates sustainable competitive advantage and potential to create sustainability business through intellectual capital and intellectual property development. This is the success story from Indonesia. Philosophy Kopi. The coffee philosophy started as the part of short stories collection authored by Dewi Lestari. Adopted on silver screen on 2015, the success continues as the sequel release on 2017, followed by the series. Intellectual capital and intellectual property development of Philosophy Kopi, or the coffee philosophy, as the core of creative business continued to many different platforms. Coffee shop that mix the coffee culture with philosophy culture as the part of the core concept. And fashion apparel with mixture of identity between coffee lovers and philosophy enthusiasts. This is the monetization flowchart of IP from short story, from philosophy coffee as a short story. This is the copyrights object. Film, coffee shop, fashion apparel, food and beverage. Many other kinds of IP can be generated, revenue income, profit, and job vacancy. With the support of digital technology, almost every business lines of Philosophy Kopi, the coffee philosophy, still be able to generate income during and post-COVID-19 pandemic. The movie and the series airing in online streaming platform. The fashion apparel, merchandise, food, and beverage can be ordered via online shop. This is a business resilience. Another success story from Indonesia is Sayurbox. Sayurbox is a farm-to-table online platform that provides fresh and high-quality products directly from the Indonesian farmer and local producer. COVID-19 pandemic brought broader opportunities for Sayurbox. The nature of the business as the digital platform get along with the physical distancing measures. The pandemic raised the awareness concerning the importance of healthy lifestyle. The founder of SciBox created user interface website and SciBox as user-friendly and easy access online platform. This technology and business concept effectively cut the long and ineffective supply chain between consumers and the farmer local producers. So the double impact is easy access for consumer and quality guarantee, and farmers' welfare and broader market access. This significant double impact made SciBox not only an e-commerce platform and brand, but also a socially conscious brand. And this will add the value to SciBox both as trademarks and as business platform. This is an important notice that intellectual property as an asset. Intellectual property, however potential, they may be still a passive object. The utilization and how much they are able to generate economic benefit highly depend on active element as the operator and support system. So what we need? A creative capacity, creative ecosystem, creative policy, creative infrastructure and support system. And the last one is law, ethics, and IP protection. Another important note that requirement that the synergy and collaboration between stakeholder act and stakeholder participation in collaborative platform model. I suggest hexa-helix collaboration between government, academics, community, industry, media, and financial institution. Government plays the role as the creators of creative policies through the creation of rules, laws, regulation, creative mainstreaming policies, by formulating the comprehensive IP protection system to foster a productive IP development. Government also responsible in providing necessary infrastructure to foster the creative culture and creative potential in producing beneficial products. Academics. Academic institution plays the important role in providing the education platform. Academy that serve the educative platform during the process of idea, brainstorming, coaching, discussion to the stage of providing necessary skill to implement the ideas. The ultimate purpose is to produce the creative graduates with intellectual competitiveness and practical skill in creative product development, supported by sufficient business skill. Community. Community are both creators and consumers of creative product. Community has impactful role as the source, initiators, creators, innovator in creations of creative products. As the consumer, community has the great potential power in influencing the market trend and tendency, and even create a new trend that applies creative value and ethical value in product consumption and market preference on local creative product. Industry. Industry plays the important role in product development in the term of implementing the ideas into a marketable beneficial products. Provide the resources for product manufacturing and mass production. Industry also plays determinant role in product marketing by providing broader market access. Media. Media, in particular digital media, plays significant role as an effective promotional tools for nowadays. Digital media are widely used and just provide wide scope of connection and promotion. Media also can be the education tools for the society to raise the awareness, appreciations, and acknowledgement of creations and intellectual property. And the last one, financial institution. In the process of implementing the ideas into effectual products and transforming creative economy as a concept into effectual creative industries, financial capital and funding are often required. Financial institution is one of the most strategic sectors to provide funding and financial capital to support the growth of startup businesses and also to escalate the growth of business scale and product development. For example, several banks have certain focus in launching segmented credit or loan scheme to creative business and startup. So the final thought is intellectual property development for sustainable and resilient business during and post-COVID-19 pandemics lies in 4 key points. The first one is synergy. The second one is collaboration. The third one is sustainability. And the last one is resilience. Thank you for your kindness attention, and thank you for the opportunity to share some insight in this webinar, along with many remarkable speakers and experts. Such an honor for me as well as valuable experience. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Ibu Dr. Ranti. Always attracting. And I think I have to try the philosophy coffee and sayur box next time. Well, after after the presentation of the speakers, this is the time for question and answer. I already have 2 participants their hand, or are you going to ask a question? I will give you an access to talk. Yanti Lasmini. Halo. Ibu Yanti Lasmini. Sudah ada? Iya. Silakan kalau ada yang akan ditanyakan langsung ditanyakan saja, dan kepada siapa? Oke. Belum ada? Baik, kalau begitu we move to the question and answer. I think I have to move to the bigger screen. Tolong ditampilkan tadi pertanyaan-pertanyaannya. Oh, okay. We have a question from Wiranto. To whom is this? I think in terms of basic and important issues, the big problem is that the intellectual candidates need, at a time like this is growing poorly through the media that cannot inspire them. What do you think about the statement? Still, Wiranto. Okay, Wiranto. Or Wiranto, do you want to speak up?
Hello.
Yes, please. You can directly ask to whom your question is.
Thank you for time. I want to ask to Professor Rina.
Prof. Irene, okay, please.
Irene, okay. I think in terms of basic and important issues, the big problem is that intellectual properties candidates needed at a time like this are growing poorly through the media that cannot inspire them. Prof. Rina, what do you think about that statement? Thank you. And addition, how much influence does the media have in arousing the passion of people to remain productive? Because I think the existing interests and the facilities are not sufficient to answer the questions that occur in the present. Thank you.
I mean, so I don't know if I understand the question correctly. Are you saying the media cannot inspire people to create? So are you talking about media like news, TV, or the social media? Well, okay, define media, and then it's easier to answer. What's the definition of media? Viranto, Mr. Viranto, what is that?
Medianya apakah media televisi biasa atau sosial media?
Media televisi. Mohon maaf saya kurang baik dalam berbahasa Inggris seperti itu.
Television. Well, you know, I think humans have invented before television, and they don't need television to invent. The problem with the media now, it's a different problem. It's the problem of fake news, the problem of you know, pushing for public opinion in one way or another. It's a lot of chaos, it's a lot of noise, but the actual scientists, the inventors, don't really spend their time watching TV. They spend their time, you know, working. The issue is, do they have access to good data? Do they have access to good materials? Do they have access to new information? Do they have access to, you know, a good way to produce creativity? And in fact, I think when you look at technology through social media, this is where a lot of new innovation is happening. Now, some of this is frivolous innovation, perhaps. You know, we don't really need, I mean, TikTok makes a lot of money, but the world could be fine without TikTok or without, you know, a similar platform. The world on the other side is much better off because of the Gojek that makes us going faster from point A to point B, put people together so, you know, a service provider and somebody who needs a service can actually be connected in a very inexpensive way. So then more services are allowed. Now during the pandemic economy, people were able to order in food and many other necessities or shop online, and not just frivolous things, but also necessity and food because of technology, and technology applied to, so often to social media. People are able, if they have a problem, to share and ask for help, and support, and social support is much better because of social media. Of course, then social media become a waste of time. There is a lot of information that should filter through. There is fake news and so on. But I don't see any correlation, to be honest, between the media and inspiration. I think our modern economy is very much a digital economy, but humans remain real. So we need to find the balance between the invention that are more digital and those who are not. And that goes down to, if I may, I can just answer another question that was asked about the balance between patent and public interest. Again, you need to have innovation and you need to have protection. I think, you know, the ambassador to Germany said it. Unless you have an incentive, people are not going to create, period. And, you know, you can go back to a system in which states were providing everything. And that might be an option in some very small or very good governance country, but it's not an option that is proved to function. So we need to have private initiative, and so we need to have innovation driven by economic interest. And so a market economy, that should also not become, so money should not become the only reason why people do things, but without a financial motivation, people will just not do it. And so this is something also that we all need to think about. And then the question becomes access and redistribution. And so something that needs to be coordinated with public-private partnership of countries' governance and good governance that wants to give to people as much as possible. But nobody can think that a new medicine will be given to everybody at the same time across the world. It will not, just because it's impossible. And now it will be given to everybody eventually, but there will be some moment in which some country get first, other country get second, more people get it first in certain, and the point is who should be there? You know, I think many of us might agree that the people who should get it first are the frail, the frontline workers, those who are actually exposed more to the danger of the virus, versus those who are, you know, able to work from home and they can just wait a bit more. But the devil is in the details. You know, this idea that everything should come from the sky for free just because it's completely non-real. On the other side, we should not allow human greed and the desire of profit to to do everything, to run everything, and makes the government choices and the people choices. We should not drive all choices in economic development and policies through just profitability. But these are difficult questions, and we need to be very pragmatic and very detailed about these. I think just think about general principles might be misleading. We need to think about access, and we need to think about the best way to give it to more people in a way that costs people the least with the maximum innovation. But patents are not an enemy of innovation. Patents are the major driver for innovation. On the other side, an abuse of patent, an abuse of IP rights becomes a hindering innovation. We need to remember that IP is fine; it should not be abused. That's the magic equation, and how we pinpoint when it is abused and we prevent that. It's the key, and that's a really hard part to do.
Interesting. Okay, thank you, Professor Irene. And we move to the question from Fanny Wulandari. Ya, Fanny, pertanyaannya ditujukan kepada Prof. Edi. Prof. Edi masih bergabung bersama kita di sini ya. Pertanyaannya adalah, apakah perlu adanya penggolongan produk herbal? Oh, sebentar. Ya, pertanyaannya adalah, apakah perlu adanya penggolongan produk herbal sebagai klasifikasi baru dalam sistem indikasi geografis berkaitan dengan pandemi yang belum terdapat obatnya dan dapat ditangani dengan peningkatan imunitas tubuh melalui konsumsi vitamin. Contoh madu sumbawa dan banyak produk herbal lainnya yang berasal dari daerah di Indonesia yang mungkin bisa didaftarkan melalui sistem indikasi geografis. Begitu pertanyaannya. So the question is concerning the geographical indication. Is it any herbal or honey can be protected as a geographical indication? Ya, silakan Prof. Edi.
Ya, boleh saya coba dalam bahasa Indonesia ya. Boleh
silakan Prof.
Pertanyaannya dalam bahasa Indonesia dari seorang mahasiswi namanya
Fanny Wulandari ya.
Dari S3 ya. Oke. Menurut pendapat saya, pendaftaran sebagai hak indikasi geografis itu kurang tepat. Yang tepat adalah sebenarnya mendaftarkan melalui perayaan tradisional sebagai suatu komunal pendidikan komunal dari suatu masyarakat pengemban masyarakat adat tertentu. Jadi sering terjadi yaitu dengan adanya sekarang ini yaitu pemalsuan madu itu ya, yang terjadi di Jakarta. Nah, saran saya supaya sebenarnya madu yang diproduksi oleh suatu masyarakat adat tertentu di wilayah Indonesia itu didaftarkan mereknya melalui merek kolektif ya, dan madunya itu sendiri dimintakan supaya itu bisa dilakukan dengan cara mendaftarkannya melalui pendaftaran paten. Itu suatu kejadian yang terjadi di Jakarta baru-baru yang dilindungi. Kalau itu dilindungi oleh paten dan merek kolektif dari masyarakat pengemban produk madu itu. Jadi jangan melalui indikasi geografis ini dapat hukum saya tentang masalah apakah suatu produk madu itu dikatakan pada indikasi geografis, jangan indikasi geografis, tapi yaitu batu sumbawa didaftarkan sebagai suatu merek kolektif oleh masyarakat Sumba, dan batunya itu sendiri yang berasal dari Sumbawa dimetakan sebagai paten kalau itu dimungkinkan. Tapi kalau tidak paten, ya sudah itu didaftarkan saja merek batu Sumbawa tadi. Demikian saya kira penjelasan saya untuk penanya saudari Wulandari. Terima kasih.
Ya, terima kasih Prof. Edi. Thank you, Professor Edi Damian, for the answer. Professor Edi mentioned that it's not all education, could be but also okay. For the next question, we will give Dr. Ranti to answer the question from Novalia Ginsu. Pertanyaannya ke Ibu Dr. Ranti, saya bacakan ya Ibu. Bisakah Ibu Ranti mengelaborasi lebih jauh mengenai kreatif ekosistem dan kreatif infrastruktur sebagai support system bagi pengembangan kekayaan intelektual seperti yang Ibu sampaikan melalui paparan Ibu. Silakan Bu.
Ya, terima kasih Bu Laina. Terima kasih untuk Saudara Nova atas pertanyaannya. Menurut pendapat saya bahwa kreatif ekosistem ini harus bisa dimaknai secara luas, ya, sebagai suatu sistem yang terdiri dari 3 elemen dasar. Yang pertama adalah creative person atau insan kreatif. Yang kedua itu adalah creative project atau proyek-proyek kreatif. Dan yang ketiga adalah creative environment atau lingkungan yang kreatif. Nah, kemudian hubungan fungsional antara 3 elemen tersebut itu untuk membentuk dan bisa mengembangkan produk kreatif dan untuk bisa melakukan monetisasi atas produk-produk tersebut. Perlu kita pahami bersama bahwa kreativitas ini bukan hanya tentang memiliki ide saja, tapi kemampuan, kapasitas untuk bisa mengimplementasikan ide-ide tersebut. Ini tentu harus didukung oleh ketersediaannya infrastruktur ya, agar bisa menyajikan kesempatan-kesempatan, bisa mengembangkan produk-produk kreatif tadi yang memiliki nilai ekonomis. Seperti itu. Kemudian sarana dan prasarana ini bisa beragam. Contohnya misalnya akses internet yang baik ya, itu sangat penting sekali. Kemudian pelatihan bisnis, sehingga faktor pendanaan juga merupakan faktor yang sangat penting ya. Faktor pendanaan dan funding itu seperti yang saya sampaikan tadi dalam slide yang disampaikan. Jadi tadi intinya bahwa kreatif ekosistem ini harus bisa dimaknai secara luas sebagai suatu sistem yang terdiri dari 3 elemen dasar tersebut. Terima kasih.
Baik, terima kasih Ibu Ranti. Ibu Ranti mentioned that there are at least three creativity. The first one, creative on the person, the creative person. The second one is the creative project and the creative environment. And also it will be the capacity building to fix the idea, not only the idea, but also have to fix it into something. Okay, we still have a participant who raised their hand. Ada Weni Cynthia Dewi. Weni Cynthia Dewi? Yeah. Talking permitted to you? Oke, masih ada bersama kita Weni. Jika ada yang ingin ditanyakan, silakan. Ada? Sepertinya belum bisa bergabung dengan kita, karena tadi juga ada beberapa yang sudah raise hand. Itu ada Weni, ada juga beberapa seperti Yanti Lasmini. Ya, belum. Kalau misalnya belum, kita bisa kembali ke question and answer on question and answer feature. Okay, and for the next question we have which one is it? Okay, from Again, the question for Professor Irene. What is your opinion on patent implementation by the government or government use? Indonesia has regulation on this, stipulated in the patent law and newly issued prudential regulation. It is the question from Karina Eka Putri. In view of this regulation and the COVID-19 pandemic, is it right for the government to use such flexibility on drug patents when in fact, many local pharmaceutical companies have been granted the license to market the drug? We assume that there should be no problem with the drug supply and pricing.
So I think this is a good question. Indonesia has some very good flexibilities in their new patent law and the presidential regulation. I think that's okay to have that. Again, it's a matter, you need to have the rules and you need to have the potential exception that give the market ability to self-resolve these issues. So medicine providers know that unless they do market those medicine at a price that is government afforded, they can go into the risk of entering to that government use exceptions. Now, it's a bit more complex than that because then, even the issue of compulsory licensing. A country like Indonesia can do that, but a country like Indonesia, has ability, has some pharmaceutical production, but is not a country that is known to have a lot of generic pharmaceuticals, at least now, as compared to India or Bangladesh, for example. And so, the compulsory license threat becomes a true threat when a government does have a very strong manufacturing capability for generics. When we don't have that, or we have that to limited capacity, these are a threat. I think in Indonesia and say, in country like Cambodia or Laos, they are empty threat, because there is no capability whatsoever. And so I think in Indonesia, these are very important mechanisms, but at the same time, they are the so-called nuclear option. You don't want to use them, but you want to have them in the law in case there is a true need of a medicine that is too expensive and the providers don't come to sensible terms. On the other side, the providers need to have the ability to recover at least cost and make some profit. You can't, again, the answer is always the same. You can't expect a pharmaceutical company to produce medicine for free because otherwise everybody's going to produce luxury bags and shoes. When we need to choose what commercial activity we're going to engage with, at a certain point, we are going to look at, what are the regulations, what are the risks, and if the producing medicine and selling in a certain market becomes too complicated, we just withdraw from it or we don't produce them because we can make much more money selling, cosmetics or luxury branded goods to rich people. Bernard Arnault, the LVMH Louis Vuitton head, now is the #2 rich man in the world because, to make expensive bags, the rich people buy them and nobody regulates them. There is no right to them. Yes, they're fake products, but these don't really eat out of the real one because people who buy fake will not buy the real. They can't afford it. And so you have a lot of people buying, producing luxury goods because it's so much safer business. But we don't need more luxury goods. We need more medicine. We need more technology. We need more life-saving drugs and things that, can transform diseases in much more manageable diseases. And so we need to stimulate innovation there. And if we make too many hurdles, then, the business say, well, I'm going to do something else. It's too complicated. I can't, I'm losing money and there's no point. And so we need to be very careful about it. Of course, these are very long-term strategies, but it's good to have these safety valves in the law with the understanding that you can only use it so many times. Because unless you have a national industry that actually produces that and it's made by national tax money, eventually the big multinationals say, well, that market is too complicated. Now, Indonesia is a major advantage. Indonesia is one of the biggest markets in the world, population-wise. So it's a big buyer market. And so company wants to be in Indonesia because there is such a possibility to really earn profit and make a lot of business in Indonesia. So that's another good point for the government. But all of these, again, is an ecosystem. Some are law, some are how the provision in the law will actually make that people will go to a negotiating table to avoid the nuclear threat of using the law. And that's, you know, and that goes into this discussion. But again, we cannot expect company to produce just for the sake of, you know, of charity. That's not going to move the economy in the world. On the other side, it needs to be fair enough to people, so then we are not letting people without essential medicine for enriching just a very few. And that's really where the issue is. And in all this gray space, the details needs to be worked out. I like the patent law in Indonesia. You know, some might say that some provision might be incompatible with the TRIPS agreement. I would dispute that as well. I like the way the law has been drafted, is very well drafted. But I know that it's not, you know, a lot of these safety valves are not there to be used every day. You know, these are really options that are there more as a legal deterrent, and it's good that they are there, I think.
Okay. You know Indonesian legal system and Indonesian regulation very well, Professor. Well, I believe there's still a lot of questions for you, particularly, but I'm afraid that we running out of time. So thank you for all the panelists, also for the active participant of the audience. I'm sure that we will meet in another occasion. It could be online, offline, or blended. Stay home and stay healthy. I turn the screen back to the Master of Ceremony. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for all the speakers. That was such a good presentation and interesting discussion. And also thank you to our moderator, Dr. Laina Rafianti, SHMH. Well, next we will hear a report from Chairman of the committee. Kepada Ibu Dr. Anda Rita Suhartini, SH, kami silakan. The screen is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. The Honorable Profesor Dr. Hajah Rina Indiastuti SE, M.SIE, Rector Universitas Padjadjaran, Profesor Dr. An.An Chandrawulan SH, Dean of Faculty of Law Universitas Padjadjaran, Mr. Badar Baraba SH, Head of Advisory Board of IKANO UNPAD, Dr. Dadang Evi Sukarsa SHMH, Head of Magister Program of Notary Universitas Padjadjaran, Dr. Ranti Fauza Mayana SH, Chairwoman of Notary Alumni Association Universitas Padjadjaran, all presents and moderator, all participants of the international webinar, and all ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank God, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who has been giving us blessing and mercies so we can attend this meeting program in a good condition. I would like to thank the MC for giving me an opportunity to speak here. This international webinar is held by the Notary Alumni Association in cooperation with Faculty of Law Universitas Padjadjaran. The theme presented in this international webinar is the role of intellectual property during and post-pandemic COVID-19. This international webinar is attended by 378 participants, consisting of alumni Faculty of Law and alumni Notary Study Program Faculty of Law Universitas Padjadjaran. students of military study program, academicians and practitioners, notary title register, and public. This international webinar is funded.
Sorry. Miss Rita, unmute.
Sorry. Along with the drastic change of social interaction pattern, in fulfilling daily needs, there is a demand to be more creative and innovative in mobilizing and using their resources, including the creative ability to solve daily problems. However, this can be seen as a silver lining. Several positive things can be obtained behind these challenging moments, which potentially leads to the emergence of new intellectual properties, and also encourage the optimization of existing IPR during and post-pandemic. The utilization of IP will reach its optimum level through synergy and collaboration between the state and stakeholders concerning this utilization and monetization of IP cannot be separated from the existence of solid support system. To discuss this topic, we have invited 6 presenters. Ladies and gentlemen, in this occasion, we would like to give out the awards to Mrs. Professor Dr. Hajah Rina Indiastuti S.A. M.SIE as Rector Universitas Padjadjaran and Professor Dr. An.An Chandrawulan SHLLM as Dean of the Faculty of Law Universitas Padjadjaran. I think that is all my speech. I do apologize if there are mistakes in my speaking. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for joining us. I do hope you are successful in your life. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much, Ibu Rita, for your report. Ladies and gentlemen, let us pray to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, this webinar has been going smoothly, and of course, this will be beneficial for us. Doa akan dipimpin oleh Bapak Tubagus Fahrul Muslimin SHMKN. Kami persilahkan. The screen is yours.
Apa nggak bisa? Valid start video camera. Please select another video camera. Nggak bisa. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, our conference has just finished. So before we end this, let's pray and be grateful for what we have done today to our beloved God. For those who are Muslim, I will lead the prayer in Muslim way, and the others may pray in their belief and religion. Allahumma sholli ala Sayyidina wa Habibina wa Syafi'ina wa Maulana Muhammad wa Salim radhiyallahu li sahabati Rasulillahi Azmain. Amin ya rabbal alamin. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Hamdan naimin. Hamdan syakirin. Hamdan yuafi ni'amahu wa yukafi'u majidah. Ya Rabbana lakal hamdu kamayan bagi li zalali wazikal karimi wa azimi sultanik. Allahumma sholli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Please strengthen our Islamic faith and make us become a soleh and solehah person. A person that can be more responsible and avoid all the prohibited things so we can survive in this world and in the afterlife as well. Dear God, please make this conference as a useful platform to learn all the good things and very useful knowledge for us, and also a barakah knowledge. Please make us become a person who have a higher knowledge, a knowledge that can increase our pride by asking your ridho and your permission. Please bless our step and our behavior, and let it all be the valuable worship for us. Ya Allah, Ya Rabb, please bless and strengthen our step and move in each of our duty. Please avoid all the dangerous things and all the terrible problems that we can handle without you. With us a halal and barakah income and abundant sustenance, because you are truly our God, the nourisher and provider of all things. Ya Allah, Ya Ghafur, you are the most merciful for all of our sins. Please forgive our sins. Please forgive the sins of our parents as well. Please forgive the sins of our leaders, the sins of your servant, and also the sins of our ancestors as well. Place all of us in your shelter, your grace, and your forgiveness. Ya Allah, Ya Mujib, you are the one that always answer our prayer. Please accept our prayer and our place. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azabannar. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Amin ya rabbal alamin. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Amin ya rabbal alamin.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ladies and gentlemen, finally we come to the end of the events. As the MC today's event, I would like to say sorry is there our mistake in bringing this event. And also thank you for all participation, for your active participation. Hadirin yang berbahagia, akhirnya kita telah sampai di penghujung acara ini. Saya selaku pembawa acara, mohon maaf jika ada kesalahan dalam membawakan acara ini. And let us close this event by saying hamdalah. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. I hope that this event will be beneficial for all of us. Thank you so much. See you on next to the event. Good afternoon. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Sisa 20 juta.